This is Kyle Cox. This is my Math in the Modern World Project 4. I'm going with logical fallacies for my portfolio problem. Let's go to the first type is ad hominem. Mine here says she states that rattlesnakes aren't poisonous, but she's not a herpetologist, so she can't be correct. This type of fallacy, basically, you're attacking the person and undermining their argument or ignoring it altogether based on them not having some perceived authority. In this case, I went with this example because my daughter, who's 9, told me that this was the case, that their rattlesnakes are venomous and not poisonous, and there's a difference. So someone might look at her and say she's not a herpetologist, she's not of a certain age, she hasn't had a certain degree, she wouldn't know that. But obviously, good information can come from a lot of different places, and she taught me something here. So next is an appeal to ignorance. Our example here, there has been nothing to disprove the proposed preternatural forces that affect airplanes inside the Bermuda Triangle. Therefore, it is unsafe for aircraft to travel there. So other than it being a complete double negative, and you kind of have to do kind of mental gymnastics to get to this idea, it's dangerous because you're not focusing on the correct information. You're not focusing on fact. You're leaving things open here. So if we're saying you haven't proven me to be wrong, then I must be right, you're leaving a lot open for confirmation bias, and you're not getting to the truth. Appeal to authority. My dad's a mechanic, and I explained the issue with him, so my car is safe to make the trip. Now, Dad being a mechanic doesn't mean he's not right. He could actually add some value to the argument, but you explaining it to him and him being a mechanic does not mean that your vehicle is going to be safe to drive on that long road trip. So it's just, that type of thing. It's important to know, these things are not mutually exclusive. So maybe it's better to go get it checked out by a mechanic, even if it is your dad, but he can't predict the future. So appeal to consequence. It's not going to rain today. We have the park reserved for a birthday party. So appeal to consequences, basically, it says concluding a premise is true or false based on whether the consequences are desirable or not. So please don't let it rain today because we have a birthday party scheduled. Well, we hope that works out, but obviously we could see why that would be unwise to not plan around the possibility of rain. So this could be dangerous, lower stakes, but it's a birthday party. If you didn't have an alternative for if it rained, then you may not have the party at all, or you might get wet. A false dilemma. If you don't vote yes for stricter seatbelt laws, you don't value passenger safety. So basically, this is where you're putting people in a corner and making them pick yes or no, either or argument, without giving additional options or giving all the information. So on the surface, you would think stricter seatbelt laws, you must support people being safe. But maybe there's a higher cost to that. Maybe there's other things in that law that limit other freedoms or are not necessarily related to the key argument at hand. So basically, this is a limiting way of looking at an argument. And anytime you're not looking at all the information, I think that's dangerous. But specifically here, you're pushing an emotion on people, like either us or them. It's a little bit of tribalism there. So that's why that's not a very good way to look at things. Circular reasoning. Example here is he made it to the house on time, therefore he must not have gotten lost. So with circular reasoning, you're basically the conclusion was true, so my premise had to be true. But that's not necessarily the case. You could have gotten lost. He could have gotten lost 3 times on the way, but maybe he left early because he thought he might get lost, or maybe he sped once he found out where he was going. Or maybe he got lost and just accidentally happened upon the house. So we don't know we can't base the premise completely on what happens in what the conclusion is. Post hoc. If I get up on the left side of my bed, I will have a bad day. Because after doing so this morning, I immediately stubbed my toe. Then I had a flat tire on the way to work. So the first thing I did was get up on the left side of my bed instead of the right side of my bed. That means I'm going to have a bad day because these things happened after that. Of course, that's not always the case. Maybe this toe stubbing had something to do with what's on that side of your room, but it had little to do with you having a flat tire. So that's kind of a superstition. It's kind of a silly example, but if you're looking at, in this case, after this, therefore, because of this, basically saying that two things happen in sequence means that that's why the first thing caused the second thing. Obviously, you can see why that's not a good way to look at things. Correlation implies causation. My grandmother ate eggs and bacon every morning. She lived to be 105. Therefore, eating eggs and bacon will make you live a long life. Those first two things can be 100% true, and I'm sure there's plenty of examples like that. At least sounds like something people would have probably told you. But there's a lot of other reasons that someone could live to be 105 in spite of eggs and bacon. Now, that doesn't mean eggs and bacon will keep you from living that long necessarily, but that specific breakfast is a pretty small factor compared to a lot of other things. Genetics, other habits, maybe that's the only thing halfway unhealthy she ate all day. Maybe everything else was vegetables. Maybe she exercised a lot. Maybe she had, again, really good genetics. So the danger of falling into that, it's easy for us. Again, it comes back to confirmation bias. What do we want to hear? If you like to eat eggs and bacon for breakfast every morning, that way you can't blame that on your unhealthy lifestyle, or your being out of shape, or having certain other issues that might be caused by that, because the bias says, hey, this person had this and it happened to them. Obviously, that's not necessarily the whole picture, and eggs and bacon didn't make her live to be 105. And then the final one is straw man. Our neighbor hasn't been to church in over 10 years, so he doesn't believe in God. And this is kind of similar to like a lot of political type things, but I kind of took it out of that to kind of show how it worked outside of the political realm. But basically, you're misrepresenting an argument in a less than favorable way to make it easier to attack. So obviously someone can believe in God and not go to church, or maybe they don't go to the same church as you, or that's just not the way they choose to have that type of religious experience. So it's all based on limiting information. And I think the most important thing about all of these fallacies is that you are there's intent to it, right? You're not intending to get to the truth. You're intending to shape the narrative in your own to your own selfish kind of narrative itself. So I think that's why all of them can be a dangerous way to look at things. I think anytime that it's important for us to know all these things, and I've been really interested in learning them, is because you can find those things when you read a certain article, or you see a commercial, or hear something someone tells you. You can notice those little patterns of, well, hey, maybe that makes initially good sense to me, but you need to be able to question both sides of an argument. And anytime that you're limiting the options or limiting the information, I think that's dangerous.